Kathy James, and I'm sure I'll see you later on this evening. And just on behalf of our whole organization, thank you so much for being here tonight. You're all very important. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay, she did the thank you. So, some of the tables maybe all don't know since I wasn't here during setup have letters on them that are forward letters. They're very similar to postcards. And what we're doing is writing to Democratic leaning infrequent voters in Virginia. And what you do is you write on the letter why you vote. So an example would be what I've written often in the past is because women's suffragists were force-fed for 3 weeks for our right to vote, I make sure I vote. All I have to do is vote, and I've got that right because of them. So you shorten that to, because they did that, I do this kind of thing. Come up with your own idea, Google it. There's a bunch of them out there. Okay. The other thing that's really exciting that happened last night is in Virginia, we won, I believe it's a House seat. And thanks to Chris Moe, I know all this stuff. She's kept us up to date. Basically, in Virginia, I believe House is in Dem hands and the Senate is in GOP. And we need to make sure that we get the people of Virginia to vote to make sure that we at least keep one, but ideally get both. Because otherwise, Governor Youngkin is going to do some crazy stuff that we don't like. The other thing is that Virginia is a bellwether state for how the next year's presidential elections go. And so we want to make sure that it goes the way we want it to go. Additionally, in Nashville, the mayor and city council people that were up for election were all Dems that won. So that's excellent news, especially in crazy Tennessee. And shout out to Terry Whitaker, who's not here, but she used to be our secretary. And she moved there to Tennessee to be with family. And we think she might have had something to do with this.
And in your vote forward letters.
That's it. Exactly. So then also we won in a flip to seat in New Hampshire. So the New Hampshire is very unique setup. They have like 400 people in one chamber. So that's getting us closer to be parity with the GOP in that state. So really excited that we're going in the right direction. Okay, and this is the kickoff for 2024. But we're going to go kind of come back local and focus here tonight for the November election coming up for school board candidates. So thank you all for being here for that. And first, I'm going to introduce Molly Fitzgerald. So she's going to explain to us about ranked choice voting, which will occur for the first time in this election. And I will turn it over to her now and go catch my breath. So thanks again.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just gonna start my timer about 15 minutes. I promised Tina I'd stick to that. It's so nice to be here with all of you tonight. I'm Molly Fitzpatrick, the Boulder County Clerk and Recorder, and it is such an honor to serve my community in this way. And I'm looking forward to talking with you all tonight about election changes and what's coming up. But before I do that, I do want to ask, who here is an election judge, has been an election judge in the past? Thank you. Can we please get this group a round of truly, if you have not been an election judge before, I invite you to be an election judge. These folks can tell you that it's meaningful work, it's hard work, but it's really important work. When we talk about champions of democracy, especially now more than ever, it's these folks that are fulfilling those roles and those duties and really under some really intense pressure. And so I really want to acknowledge the role that they play in our elections process. So thank you again to our election judges, and please let us know if you're interested in serving in the future. So we'll go to the next slide. So tonight we'll be going over some information about Boulder County elections and voters, and then we'll get into ranked choice voting and conclude with some next actions that we're asking folks to take. So we'll go to the next slide. So on a high level, just wanted to provide some upcoming dates that most of you are likely aware of. So first off, we are mailing ballots starting this week, believe it or not, to military and overseas voters. And so we mail out ballots on Friday, actually. And then after that, we begin our pre-election testing equipment. And so if anyone's interested in coming to our office and observing that pre-election testing, we invite you to do so. This is referred to as our logic and accuracy test. It's when we ensure and demonstrate that the voting system is functioning properly, that it's tabulating ballots as it should, and that the programming is set up correctly. And so we'll be doing this for all of our, normal election contests, and then of course, ranked choice voting. So if you're interested in seeing that ahead of time, please come join us for that. We do mail ballots October 16th, so you'll be seeing your ballot in the mail around that time. Please make sure, and I know that this is a message I don't need to tell this crowd, but remind your friends and family to update their voter registration record if they've moved or if they have any changes. And then one thing I really want to highlight for this group is Vote Early Day. So that's happening this year on October 26th. And we have established over the last couple of years a really meaningful partnership with EFA, Emergency Family Assistance Association. And so we are partnering up with them this year to conduct a food drive. And so when you get your ballot, please consider dropping it off at one of our drop boxes in Boulder County. And we are going to have collection bins set up for the public, voters, our staff to drop off canned goods or other materials for those individuals who are financially insecure in our county. And so we hope to have high participation and really support this important organization that does so much for our community. So please consider that. And then we have vote centers opening October 30th. And as you all know, we've got 3 big elections next year. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So this slide might be humbling for some of us. Longmont, congratulations. You just surpassed Boulder last year for most registered voters. Tri-City, so congratulations. Our county has 229,000 active registered voters right now. Go to the next slide. And all of this information is on our website. I recognize I'm talking very fast. I want to adhere to the time requirements set out for this presentation. Voter turnout, general coordinated elections. As we all know, we have really high participation in Boulder County. A lot to be proud of here in the state. We're typically one of the top counties that perform well in terms of voter turnout. It does drop a little bit in these coordinated years. So I know that we're all doing everything we can to remind folks, yes, there is an election this year. So we'll just keep up that work. Okay, ranked choice voting. So a little bit of history and overview. So in 2020, there were 2 major things that happened in the city of Boulder. The first is that voters decided and initiated, hey, let's elect the mayor yourselves. 2, let's do that using ranked choice voting. And so that passed as a ballot measure with over approximately 78% in 2020. So as soon as that happened, our office got to work determining how best to implement this type of voting method. And I will say our office and myself personally, we did not take a stance on the pros and cons of alternative voting methods. We're really here to implement the election according to state law and rule. So that being said, when that did occur, we did get quickly working with the Colorado legislature to pass a bill that really outlined how these elections should be governed. Whose responsibility should it be to come up with the rules and procedures? How is the technology going to work, and on what timeline? And so we were very involved in that legislation. And you might hear that ranked choice voting and instant runoff voting used interchangeably. And those 2 terms, ranked choice voting is really what the city of Boulder used, and it's really the umbrella term for this type of election. Instant runoff voting is specifically for a single winner contest, which is what we're looking at this election. So you'll hear myself and others interchangeably. And then the last thing, in terms of history, we did get proposed rules earlier this year from the Secretary's of State's office, and we were very involved in ensuring that they were going to work not only for Boulder County, but future state for the rest of the state. So we are the first in the state to use ranked choice voting on a modern voting system. Other counties and jurisdictions have done it in the state. They've done it using more of a hand count method. So we are very excited to help lead the state and influence the state on how this type of election can work for other jurisdictions who want to adopt it in the future. We can really have Boulder County's values and preferences reflected in this new process. Thank you. Okay, so as most of you probably know, implementing any type of election change can be complicated. This one can be especially unique in that it touches every single thing that we do. So we've really been prioritizing everything end to end. So how we communicate to the public, how we publish the results, how we audit those results. And so we'll go through that in just a moment, kind of bit by bit. Ranked choice voting overview. So I want to acknowledge that this change has been and will be successful because of the partnership that we've had with the city of Boulder. You know, again, this has touched everything that we do, and we know that it's so important to ensure that we are collaborating with partners that also have a wide reach into voters. And so we've been really working to be aligned with them on how we talk about this change, who's messaging which piece, and how we're reaching out. And so we've been able to reach out through a variety of channels, including media, TV, newsletters, direct mailings, community events, presentations. And we also have collaborated on a insert that you'll see in your ballot that I'll go over again in just a moment. So that's been really important work with the city of Boulder. And we have also been fortunate to collaborate with jurisdictions across the country that have done this work. So while we're the first in Colorado, we're not the first in the country. And so we have invested significant time and resources into understanding the voter experience from other parts of the country and incorporating those best practices into our own plans. Okay, so how to mark your ballot. So the ranked choice voting contest is going to appear on every single City of Boulder ballot. The ballot packet that you all receive in the mail around mid-October will include a green insert. And this green insert is going to be really the best tool to fill out that ballot properly. There will be actual instructions for how to fill out a ranked choice voting contest on the ballot itself, but this is going to be a little bit more in depth. If you would like additional copies of this to distribute, please let us know. We've printed plenty for you all to take and give out to, you know, friends and family who will be voting on this as well. How to mark your ballot. So it sounds very simple, and it is very simple, but we'll get into some exceptions in a few minutes. But the highest level, this is what it's going to look like when you get your ballot. There's going to be candidates in the rows, and then the first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth in columns to the right. And so quite simply, in the first column, you mark your first choice, second column, second choice, so on and so forth. There are 4 candidates, and you can rank 4 candidates, or you could rank fewer if that's what you want. We'll go to the next slide. I do want to provide a couple of tips. If you do not want to rank everyone, that is okay. Be aware that if you skip a ranking, for example, if you mark the first choice and the third choice, and you don't mark a second choice, everyone after that skipped ranking is ignored. And so that is complying with Colorado election rule. So that's first. An overvote, I know that this is a term very familiar to our judges. That's when there's multiple votes in a column. That type of marking would invalidate the overvoted rankings and all lower marked rankings for that contest. Duplicate ranking is when there's multiple votes in a row, that candidate would be credited with the highest ranking marked, and other rankings for that candidate are ignored. And I acknowledge that it's kind of hard to hear this. It's taken me, you know, we've been working on this for a while. It kind of takes me a long time to just wrap my brain around it. Again, this green insert is going to outline all of these common mistakes and just considerations and impacts as you fill out your ballot. So just keep this with you and you will be fine. And you can also contact us with any questions. Okay. How are these votes counted? So again, we comply with Title I and Colorado election rules in terms of how we count votes. And that includes how we adjudicate ballots that aren't quite clear what voter intent is. So again, we have bipartisan teams. If there's a question on the ballot and we're not really sure, did this person mean to do this or vote that way? We will have a Republican and a Democrat work together to resolve determination and move that ballot forward. So there will be specific instructions for ranked choice voting. But in terms of tabulation, in the first round of tabulation, the first choice rankings were counted for each candidate. And if no candidate receives more than 50% of the first choice rankings, the candidate who received the fewest first choice rankings is eliminated, and those ballots then have their second vote counted and moved forward. And I will say, when you're looking at our results, all of this is going to be a moment in time. We're going to count every single ballot. So what looks true for one election night, you know, it's going to look different as we retabulate the ballots for the next day. Because as you all know, it takes a couple of days in a mail-in ballot state to actually tabulate all of the ballots. We're going to count every single ballot. And so it will look different on our results page. So what happens on election night could change very quickly the next night. So again, don't live into the results of that first night because they will change. And this elimination and transfer process continues until there is a candidate who receives over 50%. I know this page looks very familiar to all of you, probably all frantically refreshing it on election night. I appreciate that. So this is still going to be where you go to get your election results. So we are going to have a couple of options for you all to see the results of the ranked choice voting contest, but still go to our main elections results website. You will see transparency to you all. We knew it said City of Boulder and Boulder County voters are want to see this data. Let's do it. So this is going to be, I think, really interesting for our community. So that tool will be available to you all on our website. Okay, so in terms of auditing, we are auditing this contest. We are required by rule to audit the contest. And so everyone is welcome to attend and see how that process works. We are working to mirror the ranked choice voting audit procedures to be as closely matched to our standard RLA procedures as possible. So we will continue to have bipartisan audit board teams. We'll have random ballot selection in terms of these are the ballots I'm going to audit, compare them to the way that the voting system interpreted it. And we will also have a risk limit as well. So in terms of what we're doing right now, there is not currently an integration of the current risk limiting audit software for RCV. And so we have been working this year and last year to figure out what other jurisdictions have done across the country. And so we have found a tool that is going to work. And so right now we're updating our procedures and documentation to conform to that tool and the nuances that that tool has. So let's see, I think that's it. Tina, we're going to the next slide. In terms of additional resources, and again, I appreciate that I have been talking very fast. I know you guys have a packed agenda. Our website has an FAQ page on RCV. Please go to that. Again, all of our events are open to the public. We invite you to our logic and accuracy test, which is when we test the voting system. And then we will be doing public tours. We actually doubled the amount of tours that we did last year just because of the interest in elections. So there's going to be more options for everyone. And we will be doing additional webinars. So with that being said, I think we're good. And these are just some helpful links to look at and make sure that your registration's updated and ensuring that your friends and family have their registration updated. So with that, I think we're good. Thank you all so much for having me.
Okay, thank you so much, Molly. We will now move along. Thank you for coming for our school board candidate for BVSD. I'll invite the candidates to come up on stage now and get settled. Reminder that each of the seats up for election represent a specific geographic district, but all voters vote for all seats. So we have 10 candidates as follows. For District A, Neil Fishman and Jason Unger. District C, Alex Medlar, Andrew Steffel. Cynthia Nevison. District D, Andrew Brandt, Lelena Quinlan Oweda. Apologies in advance or post rather. And District G, Jorge Chavez, Anil Pesaramelli, and Stuart Lord. So let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you. Oh. Kind of doing this backwards, but anyway, so I want to also say thank you to those who are here from the BVSD board. Richard Garcia, Beth Nisnik, Kathy Gebhardt, Lisa Sweeney Moran, Nicole Rajpal, Stacy Ziss, and Kitty Sargent. Thank you all. Good service. I'd like to recognize our elected officials, Mayor Aaron Brockett, obviously Molly Fitzgerald, and Michael Doherty, our district attorney. We have two candidates who are here in attendance, Elliot Hood for CU Regent and Tina View for HD 10. I'd also like to recognize that Amy Weinstein, who's the chair of the Boulder County Democratic Party, is here, so thank you. And Sandra Brandon's going to do the moderating, and let's see. Wait, sorry, my last one. So another candidate is Jovita Schiffer for HC 49. Yeah, 18. Sorry for HC 18. As far as the parameters go, you've all received the questions in advance to help kind of speed it along. And the timer will hold up a yellow sign when you have 15 seconds left and a stop sign when you need to stop speaking. The timers are over here on your left. All right, so thank you very much. Jill, here you go.
All right, my name is Jill Grotto, former city council and director of community affairs for Congressman Joe Neguse. But mostly I'm here because I just love being given a microphone in a crowd. You guys, thank you all for being here. Thank you for stepping up and being vulnerable and putting yourselves out there. We have learned over the last year how important our school boards are. And so it's a big job, and we're really grateful to you. With that, let's get started. We have some in-depth questions that each candidate is going to answer. I'll read the question and tell you the allotted time. We're going to start here with you, Neil, and go down the line, and then I'll switch it up. Okay, the first one's long. Bear with me. Actually, first one is easy. Let's find out who you are. Please introduce yourself and explain why you're running. You should stand up.
Stand up. Yes, thank you, Jill. Thank you all for coming out this evening for this event, and I want to give a special thanks to the DEM Women's of Boulder County for holding this forum. It's great that you've done this for us. My name is Neil Fishman. My gender pronouns are he and him, and I am running for the Boulder Valley School District Board of Education to advocate for all kids. Thank you. Let me start by saying a little bit about who I am. I am the product of the public schools. I went K through 12 in the Denver Public Schools, and I earned my bachelor's and master's degrees in geology from the University of Colorado. I'm an ardent supporter of the public schools. My now deceased husband and I raised our daughter here in Boulder, and she went to Boulder Valley School District Schools K through 12. And so I'm not only an ardent supporter of the public schools, but I'm very passionate about a public school education. I think it's necessary that we maintain a high level of public schools that are available to all kids in the district as well as across the country. That's one of the reasons that I'm running. Another reason is that I've spent decades working at the local level in nonprofit organizations around town, professionally also in a nonprofit. I was on the board of directors for a professional organization. Most of my interests have been at the local level, working at the municipal level, the county level, sometimes at the state level, and in the school district as well. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I was involved early on with the Boulder County AIDS Project when they were a very small fledgling organization. I've also had experience working now with Boulder County in various capacities for them as well. I worked at with the county in some programs, county level programs on diversity. I've spent some time working with my alma mater. I was the chairman of the advisory board for the Department of Geological Sciences. And I also worked for CU on the President's Blue Ribbon Commission for Diversity. I don't say these things to brag about myself. I'm telling you these things because I think it's important for you to understand what I bring to the table. I bring to the table a lot of experience in involvement in community efforts, working with other people, collaboration, cooperation, strategies. All of these kinds of things are important, and I believe those are very important matters for the school districts as well. And so that's why I'm running. And I guess we only have 15 seconds left. So I want to wrap it up by saying I want to marry desires and interests at the local level, my past experience and my involvement in the local level by being a member of the Board of Education where I can actually help community. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. It's good to be here with everyone. My name is Jason Unger. Thanks for being here tonight. Great to be with this group of candidates. It's a really strong group and I'm excited to be here. 25 years ago, I started teaching in Compton, California. I walked into the classroom on the first day in school. I had 40 kids and 20 desks, 10 textbooks. Our school had no library, we had no playground. If I wanted to expose my kids to the arts or to music, I had to teach them myself. And I really quickly learned how inequitable our public education system is. And it really changed the direction of my life, particularly since I went to an excellent public school in an excellent public school district, more than 30 miles down the road. And so I dedicated my life to education, to working to improve education. And it changed the direction of my life and my career. And I've spent the 25 years since I walked in the classroom that day working to improve education, public education for all kids. After working as a teacher and as administrator, I decided that change needed to happen at the federal level. And so I went to go work for Senator Harry Reid, my favorite Democrat, and worked to advise him on education for more than a dozen years. We worked to pass bills from pre-K to K-12 to higher ed, to improve education in those areas. It was hard. There were some bills that took years, one bill that took more than a decade, but I took away a lot of lessons from that. One of them was the importance of building consensus, finding common ground, working in areas of agreement, even if with people you don't agree with. We even found a way to work with Ted Cruz's office. I know. Now I'm here in Boulder. I'm the parent of 3 kids. 2 of them at Creekside Elementary in Boulder Valley Schools. And I have a 3rd kid. And when I do the math, she's almost 3 and she'll be in the district until 2039. So we're very much committed to this district. As we all know, it's a very critical time for education, both nationally, what's happening in school boards and school districts around the country. And locally here in Boulder Valley, we have a lot of tough issues that we're facing, declining enrollment, potential budget cuts. And so I want to bring the 25 years of experience in education, the lessons that I've learned as a teacher, as a school administrator, as somebody who knows and understands federal and state law and policy, and most importantly, as a parent of 3, to bring those lessons, that experience to help tackle the tough issues that we face as a district. And if I'm elected, I'm looking forward to working as a team with the school board to tackle these issues, to address these challenges. I hope over the course of the evening to earn your support, and I look forward to the questions. And thank you very much.
My name is Alex Miller. I'm running in District C, which is in the Table Mesa area. And again, thank you for having this event. This is wonderful. And I have a bit of a cold, so if I'm quiet, that's not because it's too far away. I just can't be loud. I went to Boulder in 1992. and I've lived here since then, except for 97 to 01 when I worked with the Clinton administration in the Department of Education. My wife and I have raised two kids now, 21 and 22, and we attend public schools in the Table Mesa, so community Montessori, Southern Hills, and Fairview. My wife and I were both active with the schools throughout that time, including with DAC, and in a professional capacity, I've advised the district on how to oversee charter schools, which is something I do in my day job. I am excited to run in this district. I'm coming at it because I believe in the promise of public education, and I think we have a very strong school system. But I still think there's more we can do to be a better school for all our kids. I have worked professionally in the nonprofit sector and also in governmental entities and led boards, task forces. A lot of it is worked in the charter school sector, trying to help school districts and other entities like districts manage their charter schools and public school choice. And I'm not running because the charter schools are a big issue, or choice is a big issue in Boulder, but it has given me an insight into how we support quality schools and how we create systems that promote equity and that are really focused on every kid. That's been my mission working professionally, and I look forward to the opportunity to do it with Boulder College. I have three priorities that I hope to bring to the board. We'll touch on some of them, but I'll only have 30 seconds later. Number one, I really think we need to address the mental health crisis and the well-being of our young people. So mental health, well-being, sense of belonging, and sense of safety of our kids is paramount. I think that's one of the things we need to work on the most. And I don't believe there's any single program or policy that will fix it. It has to be a priority and a commitment. That's where I'm coming from. Number two, I believe that we can engage more of our kids, especially in high school. I think we do a great job with the highest performing kids in Boulder. And they do amazing things, and we don't want to stop any of that. It's the next tier of kids who don't really want to take on 5 AP classes or an IB program. I think sometimes we scale back too much. And I think the kids should be prepared for the pathway they want to choose after they graduate. So I'd like to see more career technical ed. I'm excited to see the expansion of our post-secondary options. I think if we invite, we don't need to be the gatekeepers keeping people away from it, challenging opportunity. We want to invite more of them into it. And I think that will actually with the mental health and engagement things. Finally, I want to continue the work the district has done recently to support our schools and our kids who need support the most. We've used temporary one-time federal funding for quite a bit of that. We need to figure out how to continue it when that funding goes away. So thank you. Thanks.
Okay, good evening. My name is Cynthia Nevison, and I have 2 children in Boulder Valley schools, and I'm also a PhD researcher. I'm sorry, a PhD researcher in climate science, and I've also done pro bono work for many years on children's chronic health trends. So I care a lot about children, and I'm running for school board as a mom who's concerned about a number of issues in our schools, and this include declining enrollment. As you may know, only 89% of the children who were born in Boulder County 5 years prior showed up in kindergarten last year, compared to the historic norm of 95%. And that trend appears to be continuing this year. And I should say that most of the decline in enrollment is due just to the declining birth rate in Boulder County. But I think about 20% of the decline is due to parents purposefully pulling their children from school. And I think that's the area where the school leadership can have the most impact. And I think we need to ask why parents are pulling their children. And I have actually engaged with such parents. And what they're telling me is they want schools to focus more on academics and less on social issues. Others did not like the way their children were masked and isolated during COVID. And I think we need to listen to these parents and address their concerns, because if parents continue to pull their children from public schools, we're heading for a more divided society with diminished opportunities for everybody. And we're hearing a lot about mental health, and the superintendent said recently that children's needs have increased tremendously post-pandemic. And no wonder, because children went for 2 years without a normal school experience, and they are suffering from social and developmental delays. We read nationwide that academically, they are many months behind. Low-income children were hit the hardest, and achievement gaps are widening, not closing post-pandemic. And I think we need an honest discussion of what happened during COVID and how we can, going forward, look at children's overall health needs in a more balanced way. And to restore mental health, I think kids need reassurance that they will be allowed to attend school normally, make friends, participate in activities. And they need school leaders who emphasize strength and service and instill confidence. So if elected to the school board, I will put students first. I will defend their right to a normal school experience, a first grade academic education. And as well.
School board in districts, Alex and Cynthia. I originally come from Minnesota. I spent my basically public education years there. My mom was a elementary school teacher, also taught in gifted and talented programs. So I came from a teaching and education oriented family. And I saw firsthand going through the public school system from K through 12, just the real value that can bring to students and how it can truly change lives. I know that's a cliche, but it actually really does. It is a truth as well as a cliche. And so I then went to college, Madison, Wisconsin, where I had a science degree in astronomy. I came out to Colorado in Boulder in 1999. I've lived out in Boulder County ever since. I attended here grad school on astronomy. I did my PhD in 2005, and I spent the last 17 years working as a professional planetary scientist, working with NASA and various spacecraft missions that they run. I run for school board just because I see the profound impact that it can have on kids' lives. Two kids who are currently attending Monarch High School and have gone through the Boulder Valley education system from kindergarten and now up to high school, and just seeing how great Boulder Valley schools are, but also noticing that there are areas for improvement. One of those, I think, my sort of top 3 reasons why I would like to run for school board is just focusing and continuing to focus on kids' mental health. Between the Marshall Fire, which affected our family, our house burned down, and 1,000 other homes were affected and destroyed. Between that traumatic event, the King Soopers shooting, all the COVID-related changes in education, kids have been through a lot. And I think there's a real sense of trauma and anxiety that come about because of those things. And as a school district, I think we really need to focus resources on helping our kids work through some of that trauma and helping them to feel comfortable and safe and do the best that they can as students. My secondary priority is to kind of focus on kids who have additional needs, whether that be special education, those who are learning English while also trying to attend Boulder Valley schools, and even the gifted and talented program, which I think has some issues with it as well. My third priority is to kind of focus on safety, both from a physical safety event perspective, and also just a feeling safe in their own skin and as students at Boulder Valley. So every student feels welcome and comfortable and encouraged to be who they are as a student in the Boulder school system. It's seeing that my time is wrapping up again. I hope you take this all into consideration for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Women Downs, for having us tonight. I'll try to speak up so everyone can hear. I'm Lelania Quinlan-Aweda, and I grew up here in Boulder. And I went to Boulder High School, went on to CU to earn a degree in business. And with my husband, Peter Aweda, right over here, we have raised 3 kids here, and they have gone to public school the whole time. I have worked in our elementary schools, working for Blue Sky Bridge. I teach the curriculum there that is based on preventing childhood sex abuse. I've taught in middle school and high school level for moving to end sexual assault, also known as MESA in our community. I've taught consent curriculum and how to have healthy relationship curriculum. which is really awesome. I also serve on our Title IX BVSD Advisory Council, where I work with a myriad of different stakeholders to help keep our kids safe from discrimination. And most recently, I also graduated from BVSD's Leadership Academy. So I'll tell you why I'm running today. There are two reasons. One reason is that when I left Boulder High School, I was prepared to go into the world and do my thing. And I think all of the kids graduating now need to be prepared too. We need to help them with that. And when I say prepared, I'm not just talking about academics. I'm talking about problem-solving skills, critical thinking. I'm talking about the emotional wherewithal to be able to go into the world as an adult. And I got that from BVSD, and I know times are different now and they are not as simple. The second reason I'm running is that when I kiss my kids and they go to school and get on that bus, I worry. I worry about mass shootings. I worry about sexual violence. I worry about bullying. And as I look out here, I see teachers and parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, elected officials, and I know all of you are worried about these same things. And because I carry a safety lens in my heart and in the forefront of my mind, any policies that I would see as a school board member, if you choose to vote me in, I will look at if appropriate with that safety lens, because it's always there. And speaking of policy, well, I have 2 more seconds. I want to tell you guys that declining enrollment and decreased funding is going to be on the docket for our next school board. We need to elect people that can work together, people who have worked within BVSD, and people who see what a critical time this is. Lelania Quinlan Aweda. I am the longest name on your book.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Grant, and I am probably one of the few people on this dais that does not have a formal background in public education. I'll give you a little bit of my biographical information, and then I'll talk about why I'm running. So I grew up in Southern California. I'm also a public school person. I graduated from the Los Angeles Unified and Santa Monica public school systems, and then went to UC Berkeley and got an English degree from there. While I was in college, I became a student journalist and then turned that into my career as an adult. I became an investigative journalist and worked for several newspapers and eventually a large national magazine. And while I was working there, I started to cover computer security and hackers and cybercrime. And while doing that, I met a lot of people in that industry and found that I actually enjoyed doing the work of fighting cyber criminals more than just writing about people who fight cyber criminals. So I joined that industry about 25 years ago. And what I do now is I have spent, well, the last 3 years while everybody's been trying to figure out how to work from home and do schooling from home. I was doing that, and at the same time, I was fighting hackers from Russia who were trying to use ransomware to infect networks of school districts and municipal governments and homeless charities and all sorts of small and medium and large-sized businesses just to make a little buck and also to cause some mayhem in the United States. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm running. So I have 2 kids. They're both in the BVSD schools. They both identify as non-binary, and they attend New Vista High School. And what I've experienced since their discovery of themselves and their transition into this new sort of state of being is that they face a lot of horrors in the world. And I think you would have to be living under a rock to not recognize that places like Florida and Texas and Tennessee and Kentucky and lots of other states are basically turning these people from victims into perpetrators in the way that they're portraying them. And it is a horror upon all of these children. And I'm running because I don't believe in that philosophy. I think that people should be able to be who they are and be free to express themselves without fear. The BVSD schools have done a tremendous job of supporting our family and my kids, and I would like to be able to continue that with them. And I also have several other things that I would like to work on with the schools. With my technical background, I believe that we can deal with ChatGPT and AI and other technical issues. So I hope I can win your vote. Thank you.
Buenas noches, yo soy Jorge Chavez y es un honor estar aquí. Good evening, my name is Jorge Chavez and it's an honor to be here. I'm running for the school board in District G. I have 3 kids in Boulder Valley School District. My twins are in 4th grade and Escuela Bilingüe Pioneer. My 7th grade girl, my daughter, is at Manhattan Middle School. We moved here in 2018 and I've been volunteering with the district ever since. We moved here to fill out the community with our schools and I got involved immediately. I've been involved with the Family and Educators Together, a program that is not my phone. A program to allow greater participation from Latino parents in school processes and decision making. I've been involved with the parent teacher organization up in school. I've been chairing the school accountability committee for the last 3 years. In that role, I rose to become the DAC representative for Escuela Bilingüe Pioneer, and I've been chairing the district accountability committee for the last 2 years. I'm presently the vice chair. And I'm saying these things because it presented a tremendous opportunity for me to get to know this district and to talk to families from across the spectrum and across the district, and talk to teachers and administrators and get to know our new superintendent, and really get to know our district because our district is quirky. It's a very high performing district. Our numbers are great, but there's tremendous diversity across our district. Going from the Netherlands down to Superior, to Boulder, to Erie and Lafayette and Brookfield. And there's a variety of needs and there's lots of gaps that you don't see underneath. And so I recognize that not only the issues that are there, but also the tremendous potential for our school district. And so I'm running so I can kind of be a part of that conversation with somebody that knows this district well. And I think that's so important. Talking to the families, talking to teachers, and talking to administrators. I'm also somebody who came to the public education system. I came to the United States when I was 5 years old. I didn't know a single word of English. I was a free reduced lunch. My father was a waiter. Life career-wise, my mother cleaned houses. I was an English as a second language until I was 10 years old. And so I know the problems that we're talking about because a lot of the families that I've talked to today are me, back, and I won't say how many years ago, but a few years back. And so I think it's really important that we have somebody that knows this district. I know that I would not be where I am today without the public education system. I'm presently an associate professor at the School of Education and Human Development in University of Colorado, Denver. My research is in sociology, criminology, and justice. I'm a social problems researcher, so studying crime, violence, victimization, and understanding how important where you go to school is, and your family and your neighborhoods, and these are important for us. So I'm running to make sure that we have all the systems, the structures, the supports for the teachers and our students, so that when our kids leave BVSD, they're able to be successful in whatever path that they take. Gracias.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Lord, and I've been running for school board president because of what's happening in Florida to make sure it doesn't happen here. The reason why I'm running for school board started with me over 30 years ago. Remember when I met President George Bush while I was the executive director of the President's Summit for America's Future during the Clinton administration. Remember a story when Mr. Bush met me. He came up to me and he put his hands on my shoulders and he said to me, "Your shoulders are broad enough for this assignment. You'll do well." That began a long journey of thinking about what the young people need. And we started working on the 5 fundamental resources for young people. Those 5 fundamental resources are a caring adult, a safe place to grow and develop, a healthy start, a quality education, an opportunity to give back through service. Those are 5 fundamental resources that when you think about every one of us in this room, the trend those resources. That's the story of my life. I grew up in a foster home, and after ninth grade, but what did I have? Caring adults, I had teachers, I had the community who supported me. And then from there, from the summit, I began to ask the question, what can we do to ensure that high school students across the country have education and have a chance of success? We started the Summer Enrichment Program, and I'm proud to say today that 800 students are graduating from colleges and now contributing members in our society. It takes a vision. It takes people who care about making sure that what we do for one, we do for all. I am the Clyde community, and it's time for me to get them. We've worked with college presidents across the country. We've worked with universities across the country. Frequently serving as the president from the Boulder University. I know how to make difficult decisions. And you want to talk about leadership, graduating college, you turn that place around. We was able to increase faculty salaries by 25%. I care about this school district. I am a product of a community. I'm a product of education. Education that prepares students to thrive in a diverse world. The world is changing. Well, it's not the same. So what we need to do to ensure that our students graduate with cross-cultural competency, continue to build teams. When I look around, when I was in high school, I knew there was a person on the board who represented my needs. Vote for me, Stuart Lord. Thank you.
My name is Anil Pesaramalli, and I'm here to talk about why I want to contest. So I moved from California 2 years back from a school district where the problems were similar and the enrollments were declining, and all the things that we see here is what we saw there. And my son graduated in the public school system, and he's a senior here in Boulder. I have a daughter in Peak to Peak. She is a 10th grader. So the things that I saw there, we were a part of a grassroots organization. We were not contesting, but we were looking at the problems that schools have and trying to solve them. And that created an interest for me to see what I can bring it from the experience that I have in the past. And the other concern was children today, they are learning at a different pace. The whole curriculum and all the things that are being taught to them is only driven towards college application, and a lot of learning is done just to get into a college. So one of my priorities is to do a quality education, a focused learning, and a state of being in a zone where this is what I wanted to. So how do you do that is like getting exposed to, if I do this, I can become this, I can earn this much. So some of the kids that I speak to nowadays, they say, what do you want to do? It's like, I don't know. That is coming because for lack of exposure to things that they can do. When I saw Boulder Tech, I thought that was a very good initiative, and it should be extended where people are more focused. And if I want to be an electrician, I probably don't need to learn Pythagoras theorem or some extended calculus. So that is one of the things that drove me. And also, when I looked at last year, there was a community bond that was for 60 million, and there was no details of what it would be used for. It's kind of like a blank check. So I joined the community oversight, the community bond oversight committee to see, how that money is spent and how we can do better on that one. So my priorities is one, focus and quality learning, which will seconds to where they can be and wake up every day to be like motivated to go to the work they enjoy. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Your passion and commitment and experience is outstanding. Couple notes. Everyone needs to speak into the mic. Going forward, definitely works like this. Okay, 2. It's gonna get much harder in terms of timing from here because we have long questions with short answers. So I'm sorry, but I'm gonna get super annoying if you go over to start talking over you. And 3, Jason. I understand that Harry Reid's your favorite Democrat, but here in Boulder, Jonah Goose is our favorite Democrat. We gotta get with the program. Okay. Okay, and just a reminder for the audience. There are 4 school districts. You get to vote in all 4. Okay, you don't have to just vote in the one that you live in. And the way this is organized is that we have the candidates who are running against each other next to each other. So District A is Neil and Jason. District C is Alex, Cynthia, and Andrew. District D is Lelania, and Andrew. District G is Jorge, Stuart, and Anil. So it goes 2, 3, 2, 3. Okay. Now we're gonna get to that long question I was so eager to start with. Ready? BVSD board members often struggle to find resources to meet all the priorities usually identified. Adequate support for at-risk students and students with special needs, adequate counseling and mental health supports, the living wage not only for educators, but for paraeducators, bus drivers, school service workers, and custodians, full-day preschool and reducing student loads and class sizes for educators. Having basically maxed out our mill levy capacity, the next option would likely be a statewide dedicated tax or repealing Tabor altogether. What are your thoughts or ideas around increasing funding, if at all? Or what might you cut in order to fund your priorities? You have 1 minute. We'll start with Neil, go down. We can do that. We'll start with Jason. However you want.
You only get.
I'll speak in the microphone a little better this time. Sorry about the last time. Look, Colorado is ranked 27th in the country in state funding, as Jill said, and the question, we've pretty much maxed out what we can do locally here in Boulder Valley. So I think we need to focus on what we can do at the state level. I support Proposition HH, which will go a long way towards addressing some of those needs. But I really think we need to do more. We do well compared to other districts in terms of funding compared to peer districts across the state. But if you look at districts across the country, Colorado, as I said, is 27th. In some cases, if you look at the top ranked states, we provide a third as a state. We provide thirds against half of that funding level. And so really, since we've maxed out so much locally, the focus needs to be on the state level. I think we can do a better job of providing, being better advocates for state funding. I also think as someone who knows federal programs well, we need to do more to kind of ensure that we're getting our fair share of federal funds.
I've worked in nonprofit and children's advocacy for a long time, and my main conclusion is that Colorado's public finance is broken as a state, and that we have to deal with serious things around Tabor. We've made a series of state level improvements. Pass off to Kathy Gephardt, our president, for the work on the best training. And we need to continue to conduct our policy in a way that eventually leads to overturning Tabor completely. We've made progress recently. We need to keep trying. I think BVSD probably won't get much out of the current ballot measures in front of the state, but we should still do them to make the state move forward. We need to figure out how to use the resources that we have. I do believe we need to live within our means. There's no other option. and I'm out of town. Is that during?
15 seconds.
I think we have to work as a community to make sure that our budget reflects our values and that we need to prioritize our priorities and talk and listen to people about it. And we figure out what to cut. I don't know what it is yet. We need to cut.
Okay, yeah, well, I think a priority for funding is there's a critical shortage of para and special educators. And that shortage is leaving some kids without adequate support in BVSD. And there were some meetings last spring where a number of parents voiced concern about this and sometimes even pulled their children from school due to the lack of paras. So I think, and this is, special ed is funded at the federal level. There's also state funds, and one school in my district actually helps their paras through PTO funds. I think we need more resources at all levels for these kids, and I also think we need to start addressing why the special ed population is growing and continues to grow even as overall enrollment declines, because this is an increasing term in our budget, and we need to both help these kids and rein in the future costs.
So I agree with what's been said before, and I think Alex mentioned it. The state of public financing in Colorado is really non-ideal. I think a lot of part of that is due to Tabor. So I'm definitely thinking that we need to continually advocate for repealing Tabor. But that's a pretty heavy lift, and it's going to be a long. We should continue working on that. More short term you can advocate for is Amendment 23 that passed in 2000, mandated that Colorado increase school funding at the rate of inflation plus an additional 1% for the first 10 years. And that worked great for the first 10 years. But subsequent to that, the state has kind of come with sort of budget chicanery to reduce the effect of that. They had a budget standardization rule, which basically repeals some of that additional funding. And so that's a law, it's a constitutional amendment that's in the books that we can advocate for our legislatures to actually fund as they are constitutionally required to do so, and not to use this sort of budget trickery to reduce the state level.
Every time I come up, I'll say my name, Lelania Quinlan Awega. First, support HH. Support HH. Okay, second, we are going to have to be very thoughtful about our allocations because of declining enrollment, which means decreased funding. And the third thing that I will say about it is we need to follow in the path of the Lori Albrights of the world, the Kathy Gebhardts of the world. We need to elect leaders to this school board who can get down to that state house and be working on getting us more money. And we have some big shoes to fill, and I'm bound and determined to do it. Thank you.
What's the reporter? So funding schools, it's the perennial joke, right? It's embedded in our culture, in humorous things about bake sales to fund national defense. But you know, society must prioritize public education. I'm thinking that we probably do need to seriously consider a dedicated tax that would support our public schools. I also absolutely want to end Tabor, or if I could, thoroughly de-Bruce it or defang it. And I do want us to all think about supporting ballot measures that keep schools funded, don't take money away from the schools and return it to tobacco vendors and sellers. And I would really like us all to just reject treating public education like it's an afterthought.
Thank you. Such an important question. And like many of my colleagues up here, I agree, this is really a big issue about how underfunded our schools are in the state of Colorado. And it's a big issue for us to deal with. And so in my mind, it starts immediately by supporting proposition HH. Right, so let's design that our property taxes will be lower, right? So families going to need support in terms of their funding. But as a part of that, because our schools and services are supported by these taxes, then the state's going to backfill those funds from Tabor funds and take a very small proportion of it, right? About 1% as a backfill. And an important addition to that is that an additional $20 million from that money will then go to support rental assistance, but also the state education fund. getting more money back to our schools. And that's a good start to getting back the $10 billion that were promised to our students back in the year 2000 with Amendment 23. And so we've got to start chipping away at that. Thank you.
So one of our presidents keeps saying, folks, we have to have a difficult conversation about funding our schools. Yes, I agree with my colleagues here about paper, but also we have to think critically about our resources and our priorities. And we may have to make some difficult choices as a school board. We need leaders who are about to make those difficult choices. And once we've done that, we need to have some creative solutions. When I came to Boulder, I was surprised with the gap between our partnership between our educational institutions, our higher educational institutions. CU is a resource for us, our local businesses. So why don't we create a partnership, work together to advance our education? We need to get rid of paper, work together, creating a labor to sustain education, private economic organization, and be down at the State House, working with our legislators, advocating for more funds. Needs to increase its funding for education, and we all need to start saying it. Thank you.
I think the funding for schools should be coming from the state and federal. We need to push for those. But that's a long push, and there needs to be a constant action on that. But one more thing we should look at short-term thing is, for example, last year I'm on the community oversight, community bond oversight committee, and what we look at that is like if there is declining enrollment, we are spending like 150 million to build a new Vista High School, or there is 20% of the 360 million which is set aside as an inflation related money. So maybe we can look at, where we can streamline these funds and make use of them in a better way.
Okay, by a quick show of hands, who wants to get rid of paper? Okay. Now, we also have Amendment 23 on the books, which we've talked about a little bit already. Amendment 23 was intended to stabilize school funding. The problem is that the legislature has been siphoning off funds to deal with their own other problems within the state funding system. And so HH, which has already been talked about here earlier, HH is an important gap for people to fill with HH to better get the siphoning to stop happening from the state and really help our schools stay at some sort of a level. It's not going to backfill everything that we need, but it's a start, certainly. And I would roll up my sleeves like I've done with many other things in the past and come out and fight strongly to ensure that our state and our Boulder Valley School District budgets are maintained so that we can really keep the kids learning the way we want them to be.
Amazing. Everyone did so well on timing. It's a little disappointing because I really wanted to badger you. Okay. Every other question, you have 30 seconds to answer. Sorry. This is the democratic process. Okay. In 2021, upon the request from the school board to address disproportionality in discipline, the district proposed replacing school resource officers, SROs, with student safety advocates employed and trained by the school district. The board approved this change, which has been in place for over a year. Talk about your thoughts around the decision and what you might do differently. This time we're going to start with you, Anil, go down the opposite direction.
Since it's been implemented for a year, we need to get some more feedback as to how it is working, and are there any things we can improve. Definitely this is a good thing, but it is related to the safety of the children that we leave them at school and they spend a lot of time at school than at home. So more research or at least more feedback needs to go in, and thought process of like, would we give the job of an electrician to a plumber is what we should pick up. Thank you.
I agree with the decision to have advocates. However, we need to do more by investigating and looking at the research. It's a good decision, but how do we continue to assess and evaluate where we're heading? How do we listen to parents, students, and get their opinion on where we're heading? We have a safety summit at the beginning of each year with parents and students to think about safety in our schools, so we don't wait for a problem. How do we get ahead of it? Thank you.
School safety is top of mind, of course. And I was fortunate enough to lead the DAC review of the school resource officer program. And so we looked at the limitations of the research. There's not much evidence that it actually works, but we know it has negative effects on our kids. We saw the data in BVSD and we saw disproportionalities in terms of arrest. We said we should focus on proactive strategies rather than reactive strategies for mental health support, student engagement, accountability, and the district followed our lead. We presented to the district, the Equity Council, the Youth Equity Council. We involved the Field Parent Advisory Council, the District Parent Council, teachers, principals, and administrators. And the school safety advocate program today is to move in the right direction.
Time.
So the board made this choice after extensively consulting with a huge number of stakeholders, including the community, the District Accountability Council, and the Equity Council that was set up specifically for this task. And it was made with overwhelming community support, and it was a brave choice. And it was even backed up by Boulder Police Chief Harold. So school safety advocates and Director Sullivan, they've done a great job at protecting our kids. They're fostering trust. They have good relations with the kids under their supervision, and they don't need armed uniformed police in the schools to do it.
I'm going to face this direction to see my timer. I work with Michael Doherty, our DA, in restorative justice. And I'm a facilitator for restorative justice circles. And I'll tell you, it makes a big difference if you are punitive or restorative when you look at challenges that come up in our community. I support our school safety advocates. I support them having lots and lots of implicit bias training and lots of restorative training rather than punitive training. Thank you.
Thank you. This program, I think, has been a real success so far. It was only 1 year old. As a scientist, I'm very much into data-driven and seeing what the evidence suggests. So I think we need to really study this and make sure that we're having the desired effect. So far, talking to people in the community, I think it's very supportive, a very good program that has made a lot more difference in students' lives, helping them to feel much more trusting in the education system, as opposed to having sort of an arm, which police visits and schools, which can be very off-putting to particularly people of color and underrepresented. So they.
I have an open mind on this issue. I think we recall that in Denver, they also removed the SROs and then reinstated them after 3 people were shot. And as former Mayor Webb said, I appreciate the intent of the policy, but it's not working. And so I share the concerns about the school to prison pipeline that led to this policy. But on the other hand, I don't think our safety policy can be based on wishful thinking that what happened in Denver can't happen here. So again, a data-driven decision.
If I could ditto Jorge and several of the other things said here so far. I think I support the change that was made. I believe it turns into really important to get to school climate and culture and do it well. So the importance is how well we implement the program. I would also say my son worked at King Super 6 weeks before the shooting, and Denny Stone was a friend of my kids. And so everybody knows that the potential external threats to our school safety are real. And I think we need to de-escalate the safety discussion so that we can have strong partnerships between BVSD and the police and cities of all our communities.
There's no more important job that we have as a school board, as a school district, than the safety of our kids. When I've learned more about the school safety advocate program, I felt very reassured as a parent of 3 kids that what we replaced with the program that we replaced is better in a lot of ways. And I think Boulder can be a model for the rest of the country on how you can do this, how you can integrate them into the culture, how you can create a welcoming and strong environment while still focusing on safety and security. And I think we've done a really good job here. If I'm on the school board, I will want to review this and monitor this every year and to make sure it's still working. But I think we've done a great job.
Thank you. I want to start by saying I agree with the decision to remove the SROs from the schools and replace them with the SSAs that we currently have. I think it's working. The last time that they reviewed their situation with the board, it was very favorable. But I will say that if I had been on the board at the time that that decision was made, I would have insisted that we have a 1 or 2 year period of time after which we would definitely have a very comprehensive review of the program to make sure it's operating the way we want it to find out where it's not operating well, and to make sure that we change things and fix them if we find them.
All right. There's a lot of discussion nationally about how schools should support students that are transgender. BVSD's policy ACE3 reads, school personnel should involve parents or guardians in the implementation of these guidelines and the process of social transition at school to support the student's well-being at school. But they should first discuss parental involvement with the student to avoid inadvertently putting the student at risk of harm or by contacting the student's parents. Other schools mandate that parents be informed before the school recognizes the student's preferences. What are your thoughts around these 2 approaches? I'm going to start in the middle, this way, and to the end, okay? Lilania, yay.
I believe AC-E3 is correct. And people should be able to go by the pronouns that they so choose. We need to be taking our guidance on this issue from our kids. They're going to guide us on these equity issues. And kids have no problem at all calling each other by the pronouns that the person prefers. Take the guidance from the kids.
Thank you. I agree with the Boulder Valley's policy as well. The sad reality is that not every student who is going through some of these transitions has a supportive environment at home. And some of them can actually experience real harm if this transition were revealed to them. So as said before, we need to let the kids speak up for what their needs are and let the kids tell us, do they want their parents involved in this decision? I appreciate parental rights, but it really comes down to what the kids need, what their needs are. And we need to support them as a school district in going through, whatever transitions they want to have. Thank you.
Yeah, well, my concern here is for the well-being of children, and I think children should be able to explore different identities and to change their minds. And that's my concern, is that some of these procedures we're talking about are irreversible surgeries and pharmaceuticals with no long-term safety data. So I don't think that schools should go behind parents' back. I personally would trust a loving parent to act in the best interest of their child over school authorities and certainly over the pharmaceutical industry. So I do think parents need to be involved and kept informed.
I believe BVSD should be a source of support for transgender students and their families. My eldest is non-binary and was out for quite a bit of time. And I can tell you, this is intense for any family that goes through these transitions, as many of you know. And we need to respect our young people and support them. And I believe the policy is correct, but I think people misunderstand it. I think there's very few cases where you're not talking to the parents right away and the family. The family's involved in this and they're talking about it, and it's a partnership. I think there's very rare cases, and that's when professionals have responsibility.
So what's happening around the country is really concerning, and what's happening in schools and districts around the country targeting some of our most vulnerable kids is really distressing. It's one of the reasons I decided to run for the school board. I think we can be a leader as we are in so many ways here in Boulder Valley with a policy like this to help make it safe, inclusive, and welcoming for all kids. And like I said, I think we can be a model to other districts that counter some of the hate that we're seeing elsewhere in the country.
There's much more to the policy than Jill read, but I believe the policy is good. I think it's reasonable, and I think it is positive for the kids as well as reasonable for the parents and or their guardians. I also know that there's new research that's coming out, as well as my own life experiences as a gay man, that there's nothing better for kids than being in an inclusive environment, and a trans-inclusive environment is beneficial not only for the trans kids, but also for their classmates.
To parents deliberately leaving the school because they are not comfortable with school policy. And I do think that I probably am the most conservative candidate on this slate, that I am a longtime Democrat until just a few years ago, so I'm hardly a right-winger, but I can speak to these parents, and I think I can be an asset to the school board by engaging with that group of parents who is deliberately leaving the schools.
Thank you. It's Andrew Steppel for District C. I support the recommendations of the Long Range Advisory Committee. I think the number one thing that we have to focus on is communication and transparency. I don't think many residents of Boulder Valley School District really appreciate what a problem this is and what it will become in the future. I think we need to really get that message out to people that this is coming, and we need to work with the community to include opportunities for affordable housing and deal with situations along those regards. And the biggest thing, again, is transparency. Transparency, so that people know what's going on and why decisions are being made.
So the Long Range Advisory Committee provides metrics and guiding principles. They don't provide decisions. The school board is going to have to make the decisions. And when I think about it, the first thing I say is it's complex. But as a mentor told me, complexity is the frame for inaction of the privileged. We cannot let kids have half-time counselors in their schools. We cannot let them not have PE class or art. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions.
So I'm a very proactive person, Andrew Brand, and I am really glad that the LRAC put equity and access at the center of this decision-making process, and I support their data-driven approach. And they've taken lots of community and stakeholder input. I think that that should continue. And I also think we have a terrible affordability crisis in Boulder County, and we need to work and lobby the state to help anybody who will help us with the high cost of housing in this area.
Thank you, Jorge Chavez. The long-term planning committee was an idea that came out of a budget recommendation from the district accountability committee that started with a conversation myself and the chair of that subcommittee had over coffee one morning. The complex issue, it's not one problem, it's many problems. It's very different in East District versus West District. My only concern here is that it's a long-term problem, but we can't wait long-term. We need to be starting this conversation right now. And have this decision right now because we can't wait. Thank you.
Stuart Lord, this is a very complex issue, and we need to have a conversation now. We need to have a transparent conversation, a robust conversation that includes members of our community so they can be seen, they can be heard, and they can be valued. Thank you.
I come from a school district where we had to shut down and two schools and so many other things that are related to schools. And we formed a parent group, we formed a trust and added money to keep these PE programs and music programs alive. So coming from that, we need to make decisions here which are like for the long term. And I agree with most of the things like extending boundaries or whatever it takes to keep the schools going.
All right. Remember to say your names. I'm Jill Grano, and this is the last question. In 2021, the BVSD school board adopted a funding model that increased resources above the amounts provided in the state's funding formula for schools with higher levels of students that qualify for free and reduced lunch, English language acquisition, talented and gifted, and special education services. The district used one-time dollars, though. Would you support continuing this type of differentiated funding? Start with Neil.
This type of funding is not sustainable. Therefore, we need to set high priorities and make sure that those priorities are set based on equity, what is best for all of our students. These are hard decisions that need to be made, but we need to have long-term funding plans to sustain our educational budget.
Thank you. At our September District Accountability Committee, I asked the exact question of Superintendent Anderson, because I think we have to sustain that differentiated funding. We're already seeing success at Sanchez, at Cole, at Uni Hill, in the projects they're doing. We've got to figure out how to expand these programs and continue to invest in these schools because it's slow work and we have to keep moving forward. So I absolutely support continuing this funding model.
Andrew Brandt, so I absolutely think it's precisely this kind of creative thinking that we need to continue doing, and thank you to Kathy and the board for approving this. This differentiated funding model helps kids who need the help the most, and it also brought resources that helped everybody in the district with monitoring health and well-being of everyone who was inside of a school building. So the fact that most of the schools in the district end up in the targeted or elevated categories just points to the fact that we need more funding overall for the entire district.
I am Melania. I support differentiated funding. As Jorge said, it works. We know it works. So the problem is the money we used was the COVID relief money. So where do we get more money? Once again, Proposition HH. Proposition HH.
Hello, Andrew Steppel, District C. I support this differentiated funding model. I think, again, the results at Sanchez Elementary are truly impressive and shows just what we can do when we focus. However, the COVID funds are going away, and so we need to basically prioritize things. And so we're going to have to make hard decisions about how to allocate resources where they're needed the most and still keep up the level of quality of education for all our other areas in BVSD. Thank you.
Cynthia Nevison, yeah, these one-time funds, I believe, were ESSER funds, which was federal money designed to counter the effects of prolonged school closures. So to the extent that low-income children were hurt the most by that, I support the differentiated funding. But I have concerns about this whole model creating a problem with policy and then trying to solve it with inflationary spending, which furthermore, in the case of ESSER, came with strings attached, like mandated contact tracing and quarantines, which I think were harmful to students. So I think BVSD should be cautious about accepting that type of funding going forward.
Alex Medler, I'm running in District C, and for the record, I support following the advice of our health professionals and the town. Secured the challenging decisions that school board made when dealing with COVID. It's really a hard issue to deal with, and I have great deal of respect for the leaders that stepped up and managed that problem. I believe if we deal with that problem similar in the future, we'll have a lot more to learn from. But other than that, I have to say, one of my big priorities is figuring out how to support this kind of investment so that we can support the kids who need the support the most.
As I said in the beginning, I've been a teacher and an administrator in a severely under-resourced school. I know that additional funding works. It matters. I think as my colleagues here said, the data shows that it's worked here in Boulder Valley. And so while we deal with limited resources and declined enrollment, this would be among my top priorities to make sure we find a way to make this sustainable and long-term and continue to get these important funds.
My comments here are informed by my background as a scientist, as a manager, as an involved person in the community and nonprofits. I think one-time funding is great. It has a great role to play in a lot of places. But using it as seed money just to start a new great project and not being able to identify how to continue that project during its first year is problematic. And I think we've experienced that in the district already. And I want to try and avoid going down the path that we have in the past with having great ideas, but not being able to sustain those good ideas into the future.
Anil Pesaramanli. So being an engineer, I like to look at data, which is how it has worked so long, and based on that, differential funding is something that I support. But it also comes with things like, okay, there is a free lunch, but a lot of people can afford the lunches, and I've been reading somewhere on the next door, and that the lunches, parents are packing lunches, but there are lunches that are being provided. So things like that, if we can revisit and see, based on data, we can make that.
All right, thank you all. Okay, we have a couple questions that came in from the audience, but I think we're out of time. Yeah, okay. You guys, thank you so much. That was so far. Great. Standing ovation. All right. We so appreciate it. Thank you, women. Take what you've learned, vote, tell your friends what you've learned, tell them to vote, and keep being a Dem woman.
Yeah. Good. Next. Right. So if you wrote a letter, then leave it on your table or on the registration desk, and thank you for that. If you're interested in doing more, there'll be information on our website. Thank you all for everybody stepping up and taking that extra effort to protect our community. Thank you all for being here. If you are a guest, please consider joining at the Michelle Obama level, most popular, and help support our programs and our candidates moving forward. Thank you, Dina and Joanna, for doing the timing. And all of the board who did all the setup. We appreciate you all. See you next month. And guess what? It's going to be on 18th.